When I arrived in Hollywood, the big stars were James Cagney, John Barrymore, Greta Garbo, Betty Davis, Alan Hale, Norma Shearer, Lily, Charlie Chaplin, and many others. The silent films were gone. So were most of its celebrities, like Fairbanks, Pickford, Wallace Reed, von Stroheim, Arbuckle, Chaplin, rather eternal, survived all changes. When I was coming up, so were a whole flock of other recent arrivals in Hollywood. Niven, Gable, Taylor, Grant, and many feminine stars. Most of us beginners, but with a few films to our credit. Captain Blood had projected me in as a meteoric a fashion as ever befallen anyone. Once I got the salary question straightened out to my partial satisfaction, the vehicles came my way as rapidly as the studio could get hold of screenplays. During the next 5 years, I made about 20 pictures. I had little choice in selecting them. Just making pictures, make money. Just make pictures, make money, and stay and spend the dough. That was the important thing if you once did get a break, to last. Because on all sides, there were the handsome and the talented, and they might be as good as you if they had the break you had. Movie making was a whole world in itself, a new life, a new relationship between me and others. You collaborated with your colleagues, and you contended with them. You made friends, enemies. You had hates and loves. There were those you could work with, and those you wanted to kill. How could I know Olivia de Havilland felt about how could I know how Olivier de Havilland felt about having to be my leading lady? How could I know what went on in her mind? That she was sick to death of playing the girl and badly wanted a few roles to show herself and the world that she was a fine actress. And how could she know that I wanted to do something really creative? The toughest picture I ever made, The Charge of the Light Brigade, was filmed, I think, at Bishop, California. Shortly after the company arrived, the hotel we stayed at burned down. Afterwards, we were quartered poorly, and for the whole 5 months period of the screen work, we froze. Warner's spent a fortune on the picture, and it was a giant hit. But for much of the period of time, we huddled around in the cold and the dust with no facilities, waiting for the action and eating gruesome food. The action of the picture was supposed to take place in the Crimea. In the sweating heat, our costumes were thin, as they would have to be in the Crimea to absorb the heat. But this wasn't the Crimea. It was California, the cold time of the year, and we were in an area at a height where the cold was numbing. The wind was like a knife. It cut through everything, and it raced through our thin costumes. A cold, piercing wind, not perhaps at the freezing point, but it blew through you, while the illusion was being given that this was blazing Indian heat. There was the big death scene of the picture. I wanted to do this myself and refused to have a double. In this scene, I was to jump my horse over the Russian cannon, a 6-foot leap with a spear in my hand. The horse under me was as nervous as I was. Picture making is no easier for horses than men. They had put a camera under the cannon. The director called, "Charge!" and I led the charge of the Light Brigade. My horse took this cannon jump in magnificent style. On the other side, I plunged my lance into the heavy breast, and that was it. It should have... On the other side, I plunged my lance into the heavy breast, and that was it. It should have, of course, been done by a stuntman double. It was stupid of me and stupid of Warner Brothers to let me do it, but I was really interested in my work at the time. When the Screen Actors Guild was born and swiftly grew, it put a stop to conditions such as I experienced in the making of this picture. It moved to halt the more predatory producers and directors from many of their excesses. As for the treatment of the horses in this film, I myself complained to the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. I hasten to say I have been no angel with all animals in filmmaking. You couldn't be, and get the action on the screen that the public expects. Horses have been perhaps the most badly treated animals in the motion picture industry, especially in the days when these early westerns were being ground out. A device called the running W was used on horses, a tripwire to make the animals tumble at the right instant. The stuntman riding the horse knew where the tripwire was. He knew when he had to get off, and all he had to do was take a fall. But the horse would go head first, and sometimes get hurt, and have to be shot. They stopped this because so many horses broke their legs and their necks, and there were protests by the actors and the public. This gave rise to a wonderful breed of man. This was the stuntman who could train a horse so well that he could ride down the side of a cliff, and at a certain signal, the rider, putting his left foot under the horse, would trip him. The horse knew he would be tripped. It looked just as good, and nobody was hurt. There were some great experts at this, especially an old man, George Dolan, who is dead now. Anytime you saw the Sioux going hotfoot for the hero, and you saw the hero turn around and give one unerring shot, bringing down a horse, the red man was fairly certain to be George Dolan dressed in feathers. To me, the most wonderful thing about movies was to see the way people could make animals work. You could see the men behind the camera giving little signals, making sounds, a gesture with the right hand to do this or that. On the screen, it looked as if the animal was only looking at the man or woman with whom he was playing the part. Actually, he had been watching his trainer. For they died with their boots on. We had a wonderful set. Long steps leading to the headquarters of General Winfield Scott. I played the part of a young cavalry officer. The plot called for me to soften up the general. I was supposed to have found out what his passion in life was. It turned out to be creamed onions. Good. So I got the creamed onions to him. I'm supposed to be so enchanted at having softened him up that I am to run exuberantly down the steps, jump on my horse, and take off to the wars again. I'd carefully trained my favorite horse to stay at the bottom of these steps. Camera. Action. The general is happy as a lark with his creamed soup, and I am departing. General, I shall not disappoint you, sir. Down I go, full speed, leaping down this long line of steps. Then I'm flying through the air, and I land neatly on the back of my favorite horse. Except, the son of a bitch isn't there. In the same picture, death rode at my side one day. I saw luck run out suddenly for a good friend of mine. I was leading a charge against the Indians, a 400-man brigade of cavalry behind me. We were moving over a long expanse, a plain in the San Fernando Valley. The terrain was rough. Mountains were in the background, and a big fellow with a camera followed us in a car as we charged. In a movement like this, you didn't know the terrain, neither did the horse. You hoped to come through alive. Next to me, there rode a young fellow I liked very much, Bill Meade. He came from a well-known California family and had just inherited $1 million. He had married a beautiful girl and had just become a father. He wanted to be an actor, and he had every chance to make it. He was very good-looking, an athlete, an excellent polo player, and he always wanted to ride on my right flank or behind me. Bill didn't know it, but I would have cheerfully changed places with him. He could have been the actor doing these pictures in which I didn't believe, and I would have had his $1 million. He followed me around like a puppy. I wanted to see him get places in films. He had all that the world can offer, except fame as an actor. Twice we ran through this charge, and all around I could sense fatigue. The cavalrymen in their silver uniforms were tired. There was foam on the mouth of Bill Meade's horse. With all these tensions at work, tired horses beneath all of us, 400 men going slash bang over the plain, noise, the clomp of feet on all sides, whinnying, neighing, suffering horses, swords wildly waving, I judged that the odds were bad, that we had overdone, should quit. But no, the gun went off, the signal for the third run across the plains. The weary animals were difficult to control. I can tell from this new, strained sounds they are making how nervous they are. I can hear the camera car going full speed beside us, setting up a cloud of dust to contend with. I know they're filming my profile as I scream out, "Hell for leather, men! Forward!" I turned in my saddle and waved the sword at my brigade. At a time like that, you wish you were at the back of the cavalry, not in front, because anything can happen. Bill Meade moved up alongside. His sword was drawn, and he held it in front of him in the cavalry style. He was the closest man to the Indians. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his horse stumble. Like a good horseman, he got rid of his sword and prepared to fall. He threw the sword about 20 feet ahead. With the momentum of the horse behind his throw, the sword did one of the most curious things. It landed on the hilt, point upward, as the horse completed his stumble. Meade fell forwards towards the ground. The one chance in a million of a thing like this happening. That sword was angled just right for murder. Bill landed on it so that the blade went right through him from chest to the back, right through his lung, not missing his heart. Fear and fight against it have been with me all the days of my life. I still don't understand how, when I was young, in Australia, I became an expert high diver and almost made the Olympics. I still don't understand how I could get up there, look up at the skies, squint down at the water, and let myself go from 90 feet. As I got on in screen work, the derisive term Fearless Flynn developed, like calling somebody a show-off. This aggravated me because actually I am more cautiously fearful than most people. I would hear them say, just hang out with Flynn, bravest living white man. He's captured mountains in the movies. When people were incautious enough to say this to me directly, I found myself in brawls. My earliest pictures, I didn't know what I was doing most of the time, but stuntman pals always helped. When you're a beginner filled with vain and ambition, the last thing you want is to have somebody else do it for you, what you can do as well. I thought the public would like to see the actor himself at his own daredeviling. They would like to feel that this was no stand-in, no screen-making trickery, but the real thing, a true performance. I didn't understand it when the studio was worried, when they lined my suits with cotton wool and insured me as heavily as they could. Most of the stunts that people saw in my action pictures, I can truthfully say, were done by me. I have fought sword fights on parapets, ridden horses over high barriers and deep gullies, and fought with Indians who were real tough stuntmen, great boys, always. In the adventures of Robin Hood, I did all of my own stunts. Damn it, I said to myself, I'm not going to be a phony. The reason behind it was that I had fear and I had to go out and meet my own fear. If I'm afraid to do something, I move in on it and try to tangle with it and lick it. Later on, I got wise to this business. As I lost interest in the vehicles I was cast in, I let the stuntmen take over, especially if there was sword play. Professional actors are the most dangerous people to have a duel with. If Rock Hudson, David Niven, or Anthony Quinn challenges me to a duel, we are all in trouble because we don't know how to handle ourselves. We are thespians, not fencers. We come out charging, whirling all around, forgetting the prepared routines of the sword play. John Barrymore was that way in Romeo and Juliet, when somebody said to him, "You're a dangerous son of a bitch with that sword." He didn't give a damn, just so he would look good. Anthony Quinn ran a sword through my doublet, and I nearly lost an eye, and Tony felt worse about it than I did. I also got a sword tip in my mouth in another joust. You put things down as incidents of the business. Fencing is rough on the hands. I have had my hands cut up time and again. There are supposed to be precautions in this sword play, tips on the ends of swords, but you can still get hurt. The sides of the swords are sharp. They can cut you up in 1,000 bits. I don't think just a scratch or a cut. I don't mean just a scratch or a cut. You can lose an eye, especially if the guy comes out slashing like a maniac. That blade can go up with one slash and cut you all up. When the camera starts to rev, it is remarkable what happens to actors. So I've always worked with doubles if I could. I never trusted myself with another actor. I don't care who he is. He is always uncertain. A good stuntman, if you know him, you can trust, and you will come out of your duel with him and with your mouth still in front of your face, with teeth still in it, your car still on the side of your head, and your nose where it was to begin with. I don't know much of fencing, but I know how to make it look good. You only have to stand still and look forward, your head proud, and let the sword point straight out. You and the sword both unmoving, and it is dramatic. Let the sword point dip 2 inches, and the gesture can look very clever and dangerous. Whenever I saw one of these wild actors get a gleam on as the camera started rolling, I would throw down my sword and say, "Let me know when you're finished." Or I would knock the sword out of his hands and throw mine in the air, meaning a clinch. "Look, buddy," I said. "You forgot that routine, didn't you?" I'd make sure. If you want to make a big actor out of yourself and maim me, you're going to do it. But I'll tell you something. I'll give you one more chance to do it right. Otherwise, I'll slash your head off, and you know I can do it. So continue with this personal routine of yours, and you know what'll happen. Now let's be sensible about this thing. Early one February morning, I received a telegram from New York. Arriving Hollywood Monday noon with 1,200 monkeys. Coats. Coats! The thoughts of Coats coming only a few hours away was like a scent of water to a camel in the Sahara. I smelled freedom. It gave me such a lift that I unthinkingly rushed to bear the tidings to Lily. I had often told her of our riotous days in the Far East. "Look!" I showed her the telegram. When she saw the name Coates, her mouth fell open. "That pig!" she shouted. The smile left my face like a wave retreating from the rocks. "That pig you refer to happens to be my best friend in the world. Moreover, he's staying here with us." She looked steadily at me. "All right, Flynn, I'll get his room ready." I rushed to bear the glad tidings to my pal, John Decker. He was at his easel when I rushed in with the telegram. His face lit up with pleasure, and he opened a bottle of whiskey. "What in the hell is he doing with 1,200 monkeys?" Decker asked. "Who knows? Who gives a damn? He's coming." We went back to my house, where I expected some kind of argument with Lily. Coates was there. "Good Christ!" Decker shouted when he saw him. "That's King Kong!" I hugged Coates as he boomed a greeting. In the background, I could see Lily. She obviously been conned by his charm. In spite of his incredible appearance, his blue eyes and magnificent voice often melted women. We talked all day, with Lily listening, and for a long time with Decker about. He explained that the only way he could get to America to see me was to find a good pretext. So he bought 1,200 monkeys. These he would sell to the Rockefeller Institute here for experimentation purposes in connection with the common cold at $1 a head profit. We retired early, but I had to have a private chat with the big baboon. I entered his room with a bottle of champagne. I kicked him out of sheer camaraderie, and he woke up. "How I envy you married men," he said maliciously. I told him the truth. how I had to get away from the film factory and from Lily. Coates, you've got to help me. Coates sat straight up, put on his thick glasses, and his face split in half in a grin. We can go anywhere you like, he said, but there's a hell of a good war going on in Spain. A civil one. The best kind for scientists like ourselves. What do you say? When Coates discovered a new war, what was there to say?